Accommodation registration looks small because it often appears as one line in a relocation checklist. Arrive in China, check into accommodation, register the address, move on. But for a foreigner in China, the address record can become the first gate in the residence permit chain. This episode is not about choosing the best apartment. That is a separate rental decision. This episode is about whether the place where a foreigner actually stays can be registered correctly and quickly enough to support the landing file. The key anchor is the 24-hour rule. For non-hotel accommodation, foreigners are commonly expected to complete accommodation registration within 24 hours after arriving at the residence. Hotels often handle this directly through their own system. Private housing usually needs a different route. That difference matters. If a foreigner stays in a hotel, the hotel may upload the registration record. If the foreigner stays in an apartment, a serviced apartment, a short-term rental, a friend's place, or a sublet, the process can depend on the landlord, property documents, address format, and local police station practice. The first check is hotel or private residence. People often treat all accommodation as the same. It is not the same from a registration perspective. A hotel may be administratively prepared for foreign guests. A private landlord may have never handled a foreigner's registration before. A short-term host may not understand the requirement. An informal sublease may lack the documents needed to support the record. The second check is the 24-hour registration route. Who will handle it? What documents are needed? Is the local route online, offline, through the landlord, through the property office, or through the police station? If the foreigner only starts asking after moving in, the clock may already be running. The third check is landlord cooperation. This is one of the most practical risks. The apartment may be real. The lease may be signed. The rent may be paid. But if the landlord cannot or will not cooperate with registration, the address may not support the immigration chain. The fourth check is address format. The address used for the lease, accommodation registration, employer records, and later residence procedures should be clear and consistent. If the building name, room number, district, or property record is written differently across documents, later review can become harder than expected. The fifth check is move and update timing. Many foreigners move after arrival. They may use a hotel for several nights, then a short-term apartment, then a long-term lease. That is normal from a living perspective, but each move can create address record questions. The file should not suggest that the person disappeared between addresses or stayed somewhere that was never properly registered. Now consider the penalty and procedure risk. Failure to register can lead to administrative penalties, including fines, and it can create complications in later residence handling. The bigger issue is often not only the fine. It is the gap in the landing story. When a residence permit file is reviewed, the address record helps show where the foreigner actually stayed after entry. If that record is late, missing, or inconsistent, the small step can block the larger procedure. Now follow the address problem from the beginning. A foreign worker arrives in China and books a short-term apartment online. The photos look professional. The location is convenient. The host confirms the booking. The worker assumes it is like staying anywhere else. After arrival, the worker asks about foreigner accommodation registration. The host is confused. The landlord is not available. The apartment may be under a different party's name. The property office does not want to get involved. The worker spends days trying to find the right route. Then the worker moves to a longer-term apartment. The residence permit timeline has already started. Now there is timing pressure, address uncertainty, and a registration gap that could have been avoided with one question before booking. Can this address support foreigner accommodation registration immediately after arrival? The problem did not start at the residence permit counter. It started with an address that could not support the landing chain. Here is the framework to save. Address record check. 1. Hotel or private residence. Will the place handle foreigner registration directly, or does it need landlord cooperation? 2. 24-hour registration route. What is the local method and who is responsible? 3. Landlord cooperation. Can the landlord provide what is needed, not just collect rent? 4. Address format. Will the address match across lease, registration, and later records? 5. Move and update timing. If the foreigner changes address, will the record be updated in time? The lesson is clear. Accommodation registration is not a formality floating outside the main process. It is often the first address record in the residence chain. There is also a judgment point before booking housing. Do not ask only whether the room is available. Ask whether the address can produce the record the foreigner will need later. If the host cannot answer, if the landlord avoids the topic, or if the apartment arrangement is informal, the risk is already visible before arrival. That early question can protect the whole landing sequence. It also prevents a common false comfort. Having a place to sleep is not the same as having an address that works for the file. What if renewal is not a repeat button? That assumption is the next risk.